Okay, Devils, how we doing today? Happy Friday. So we're here on the 19th of April and polling's in. You guys saw the results, so Litecoin just squeaked it out. A little surprised, right? So I thought this was relatively straightforward here. There's a few little question marks in here, but just for a quick review here before we dig in. I know you can't see over here. This is my primary account. This way I've got us in a WXY, having completed down here. Oh, I've shown these many times here, but you can make a pretty strong case for it. So, of course, we can see first algo target reaction, then they get second target, and that seems to be the trigger that we're seeing the response from. Now, I suppose a bear might be looking at this thinking, oh, ABC into a W, there's our X, and now we're going to go. I don't even know how could a bear do that? I guess a bear would be looking at A, B, C on the assumption that we might be doing 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, pay attention to where 0 is because we're not too far here, right? Our previous low is at 20 bucks. So there's a... I don't think that works as well because if they're trying to go A, B, C... You're leaning into the idea you're going to have a flat here. So you're going to go 3, 3, 5. Well, it's already a little bit of a stretch to get this as an X wave, right? You got to kind of pull the AB out of something lower here. Maybe this double bottom offers it to you, but the basic structure, it's always a little bit of a push here, right? So it sure looks like that's 5 going up. So whether it's WXY or A, I'm going to call this a B, already a little bit of a, it's not ideal, right? So you'd rather see something like this where you have very clear, open this up here, right? All right, where it's just no question about it, right? So the market doesn't always give it to you, right? So this, this kind of thing is so clearly a 3. Right, that's what you'd hope for here in the X. Has to be corrective. But this was, as I recall, not to the tick perfect. This looked pretty good. There's a little spike to come through it. So I'm just trying to think, what is a bear looking at here that has them bearish, right? So I do recognize that the 3-4 here is a contender, but if you work through the subdivision here, boy, I don't see it. I'm a bull. I'm long and strong, and have no plans to be selling on the anticipation that we're going to go down and break this low. Now, of course, that's just me, right? But in terms of what we're looking at here, for members looking for trade setups here. Well, let's go dig in a little bit here. So on the assumption we've got a low in here, let me go. Let's go to a 2-hour here. Right, as I'm reading it here. Now I have an alternate we'll look at as well because there's a couple of little questionable spots here. So part of what's questionable here, where you can find was where you can build an alternate, is this sure does look like 3, 4, but we don't get a new low here, and it doesn't. It's not a great finish, right? So much of the majors had that same problem. Looks like you've got to kind of tweak in there kind of an ugly 5, and it's a truncated 5th. So already that's a little bit right now coming off of it. Subdivision's challenging here, so you got to get a baby 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you got to finish with a diagonal. But I think that is there. So we do get a diagonal into the, or pardon me, we get an impulse that finishes with a diagonal into the 1, 2. Now, again, we've shown these before here, so this is perfectly technical, so you can see, right? So no question. So we go note, right? So it's just a couple of ticks into the golden zone. Boom, target. Look at the reaction. All right, so we know that's not. We don't have to wonder what happened there, right? It's straight algo play. All right, so 1, 2. Now, per the count that I see here, and I've had this count for some time, got some people doubting it here, but Kristen, I'm never here to say my count is the right count. Right, Elliott Wave is just a tool to help us try and organize the chaos. Right, a lot of people say, "Oh, it's totally subjective." It's fine. As I remind you, if you don't like it, don't use it. Right? I mean, I try and demonstrate to you how I use it and how I find it to be useful. but it's not the panacea. It's not like, oh, well, shit, I know exactly what's going to happen next. Never proposed it was. Just a way to organize the pattern. That's really all it's doing. It's not so much about predicting the future as it is creating opportunity zones, right? That's how I often describe it. But not to digress on that, let's just take a little peek here. Well, if this is 1, 2, right, and we get this very technical pivot here. Well, right, so it can't be 1, 2, 3, 4. So what is that? Just process of elimination. We got to go 1, 2, 1, 2, right? So now, of course, we have now. If you're over here, you wouldn't know that, of course, right? So we have all the benefit of this data, but trying to figure out on the hard right edge, where are we? What's likely? Where are the probability zones? This is where the Elliott wave is helpful. So where am I in this sequence here? Well, you can see a couple of clear spots here. So from this pivot, I get a clear impulse there. I get a correction, then I get another impulse here. I mean, you cannot miss them. So it's about, is this 1, 2, or is this the one, right? So your eye kind of wants to go, oh, 3, 4, that looks so good as a 4, 5, that you're kind of tempted to do that. But I don't think the subdivision plays as well. Now, we will look at an alternate here that would do that. It doesn't change the result, though. So, for those of you struggling to get the 1 out of that, I think we did that in a chart challenge, actually, right? Because I was proposing that there was going to be another leg here. So I think we posted that in the chart challenge section, well, for members here, to get that to a 1, 2 into a 3. It was kind of tricky. That's why we put it in the chart challenge. Most of you got it. So looking here, again, of course, we have all of this history. So how do we organize the data? Well, from the low here, if this is my 1, this is my 2. So again, this is just standard. It's the same thing every time, guys. So from that 2, well, 2618, that's your extreme for a 3. Now, of course, they can go beyond that. Here's your high probability zone, but I don't think that's where we are, because the subdivision wouldn't work as well. We'd be going, you think about it, you'd be going 1, 2, 3, 4. Are we finishing here? That would have us finishing, and then this is the 2. Yeah, I think that less likely, right? That's not possible, but less likely. And the reason I think this is better for our 3 here was just as we did there. So I'm going to take the length of the 1, projected from the 2 low. High probability zone for the 3rd, right here. Where do we go? Right there. All right, so if you're sitting over here, looking at that, you're thinking, oh, okay, 3, 4. We don't overlap the 1. It's awfully good technically here. You can see, well, you're just looking at the volume profile here, right? Nice, good area of support. We don't come down into the, well, you can see why you've got this little low volume node right here, right? Because we had very little market acceptance here. Either went down, or as it tested it, went up. So 1, 2, sure looks like the subdivision plays. 3, 4. Now, you'd be thinking you're done here, right? You could have made that case then, right? But now, of course, right? So I think this subdivision, it plays awfully well here. So if that's 1, 2, 1, 2, well, this 3, 4, 5 looks very solid. Right, the subdivision all plays nicely. Now the 4 is a little, it's not ideal, right? Because you get this very short C wave. You do see it, when the market's rolling like this, it's an impatience here. Right? So people don't want to wait for a deeper retracement. Interesting, so we don't overlap here, and it's technical. So from the 2 to the 3, let's get that right on there. All right, so again, right, no question what happens here. So we're in between the 50 and the 38 and the 50. Maybe a slight run on the pivot here. What do we do? To the tick. All right, reaction, right? It's got more legs, so we get it, but we know what happens here. So if that's 3, 4, well, I get a clear impulse here. I can't miss it, right? It's just impossible to miss it. Or even the subdivision in the 5th of the 5th of the 3rd. It's just all beautiful impulsive structure. It's hard to miss it, right? So then this kind of sideways action here, very characteristic of a 4. Unlike this, which was just the straight rip down, so often you'll see the A wave is the rip, and a little corrective B and a very tiny C, but this very much looks like it's 4-ish. So how do you work it? 1, 2, well, if this is completing my 3rd here, so this being a completed impulse here, very, very just Beautiful structure. Well, there's my 3. Well, now it becomes a question of, is all of this just a kind of a sideways, my partner likes to say sideways fuckery here, as we're just going sideways through this? Well, I think you gotta work it. You gotta use some of that subdivision here. So let me go down to the 30 minute here and show you how I should say counted it here in the structure. So if this is the top of my 3rd, I can go A, B, C into my 4 here. I think you got to use the 1, 2. Now again, this is just as I do every time, right? So if this is the 1, this is the 2. Well, we're way too far, right? So the 1, 2 is so shallow. But this looks like a reasonable 3, 4. So if that's correctly identified as the 2, and that's the 3, well, where are we looking for the 4? Between the 23 and the 38. That's right where we get it. And this has got a pretty good kick here. I'm not overly concerned about all that subdivision here. It is a point worth looking at, that if you were here trying to figure out the count here, is it possible? So sorry, guys. Excuse me. Is it possible here that we have a truncated 5th, right? And that somehow this is 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess we could do it 4 here. Can you go 1, 2? We can't get. It's not long enough. 3, 4, 5. So I think the overall structure here being pretty clearly a C, an ABC. I think that plays better as the B here. So we come down A, B, C. Again, another shallow C. A, B, C into the B wave here. Now coming down here, I can get a decent, well, it's kind of, are we done, right? So that's what I'm trying to get to. Are we done here? 3, 4, 5, right? So essentially double bottom. All right, does it look like it's done? 2 to the 3, here's the 50. Well, we don't make target. So question mark, right? When it's not precise, is there something else there that I'm missing? Well, so it's a diagonal, so we could certainly look for the start of the 1. Right? Interesting. Through the pivot of the 3. We're looking for it between the 38 and the 50. Really, 50 is perfect for a diagonal. We don't quite get there. Possible. I suppose you could make a case that you've got more legs to come here. That the 4 is coming in over here. Maybe, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This looks fairly solid as the 1 here. So that's a little tricky up there. Straight. You might be able to do it. So let's just look at the alternate, because what I'm trying to get to is we're not far enough down yet. So if that's 1, 2. Then we could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of 3. This could be the 4. And then there's potentially a 5 down here a little bit lower. So then you'd be looking, if this is going to trade as an impulse, right? The 4 has not overlapped the 1. So let's wick that off as a candidate for the 1. Right, so I can, well, let me take this up a degree and we'll get it labeled correctly. So as a possibility here, here's a 1, 2, 3, 4. Pardon me. Nope, wouldn't work. My mistake. Right, wouldn't work. Do you see why? Because we'd have a diagonal in the 3rd. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4. But look, we'd be overlapping the 1 here just barely. So you'd have to trade it as wouldn't work. Wouldn't work. 3. No, you can't do it. So okay, so we can. That's actually just fine with me. So we can abandon that as an alternate, right? So 3, 4, 5 is in. So we hold here with the diagonal structure, right? So you'd be going this way. So this stays this. So we get the 1, 2, 3, A, B, C into the 4 overlaps here, and then you'd have to go A, B, C into the 5. Okay, so that likely, right? We never know for sure, but likely we finished something there at that degree. All right, so 2, 4, 5, A, B, C. So what's the problem, right? So what I'm trying to get to. So let's go back to an hourly. Well, if we're done there, that would be, I guess I got to go 2 hours. Okay, if we're done there, we're looking for, right? This is all just probabilities, guys, right? It's not that it must go down there. But so note here we get here. So look at the volume profile here. There's very little support along the way here until we get down to this range here. We look across here where we've got some structure here. This was the base building before the rip up. So you have some structure. So you, excuse me. So you're looking for a deeper move. So if we're done here, if that's our one wave going in off of our $20 low, you're looking for something a little bit more complex, something along those lines that would come down to this zone more typically found for our second. Excuse me. So what that would leave, if we're going to have any kind of weakness here over the weekend or in the near term, we'd be looking for a WXY. Now, it's way too early to project that, but right now, if that is indeed finished, well, that's what you'd be kind of eyeing for. Now, if this starts to take off from here, and we start to push and we break this and we start to go into new highs, well, there you go, right? So there you're just gonna have a shallow two. But do you wanna put money on that, right? That kind of becomes the question. Are you so bullish that you think, oh fuck it, we're on a tear, so we're gonna have what, a 25% retracement off of the two. I just want to get long because we're rolling. Yeah, I understand that thinking, because it's tempting, or so it looks like. So if you look where we are, if you look at this, we're between the 23 and the 38. What does that look? More probably looks like a 4. So then the thinking being, oh, all right, well, screw this Elliott. I'm going to keep it super simple. Here's what for this the layman. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, what's wrong with it? Well, this is, again, as I often will say, the Elliott wave it's a guideline, right? It creates probability zones. It's not a crystal ball. Never was intended to be. So do you give a shit about the internal wave structure, right? If you're just kind of dabble with Elliott, well, you can go, fuck it, that looks close enough. What kind of trader are you? I mean, how much? What else would be there? So if you're like, fuck the Elliott, so what else could you use there, right? So then you might think, okay, well, can I find any sort of algo pull that would fit there? Well, there is this, right? So you want to use something of substance, at least a significant pivot. This last pivot before we go up. So you might be thinking, all right, well, how did we look? Here, this was obviously some sort of a retrace here. That's the one I showed you here. We went right to target. So we know this was a pivot that was used. So is that? Hang on a sec. I'm trying to give you guys that just don't like the Elliott. Like, trying to give you something to work with here. So we know that was technical. Here's another 50, right? We get that rips. So maybe right now you got to go here. How else could we use it? Well, if this is technical here. Is that enough of a pivot? It was a 50. No, this is probably a 50 too. So we kind of end up in the same spot. All right, so here's a 50. So that brings us right back to where we started. We could use this pivot right here. All right, so is that enough? Is that enough for you? I wouldn't do it, right? So now I'm long. Right? I have no intention of selling. I'm a Litecoin bull. So do I? It's not that I don't think that this is, it's probable. Right? I think it's probable, not like, oh, that would be crazy, it would freak me out. No, I think that's more probable here because I think all we've done is complete a one wave. So just trying to put that back into this context. So if this is complete, well, that's how we're going to need to get there, right? Because I can't just go, well, that's annoying, but I'm just going to, let's just call it an A wave, right? Well, the subdivision doesn't play. Yeah, from here, if it's a truncated 5, yeah, you could go A, think B, C, but what's the difference, right? You completed something here. You're looking for this to be a retracement, so the next thing you'd be anticipating is something between the 50 and the 618. Well, really 50 and the 786, but this would be ideal. So this puts your first target here, right? Be a little shallow. We'd be at the 38, not that we don't see them. Here's your second target here. Potential golden corner pocket, maybe. Let's tee it up. Golden corner. It's going to need to get there in a hurry. I'm right on that. We could get there sooner. So if this is going to kick up here over the weekend, right? You know, I don't have a pivot here. I'm just kind of free drawing. Say, would that be? I mean, this would be absolutely perfect. You'd be right back to where that structure, where the base was. Well, you see what I'm getting after. Right where this base is, looking left here. Plenty of structure here. So if we came down here, that's not a place to freak out. That's a place to salivate and have limit orders sitting. In my view, we come down here, I'm a buyer. Now that's always, because emotionally it's hard, because you're thinking, oh shit, man, we've been ripping off the low here. All of a sudden we're back to $60. I don't know, man. The more nervous you are about the entry, probably the better the entry is. All right, so at least down here they're putting it on sale. We're pushing up here. That's retail. All right, give me the 50% discount. All right, then I'm a buyer. But until then, I don't think you want to be overly aggressive on the long side here, because again, if you give a shit about the subdivisions, you don't have enough here to create a high probability zone. That doesn't mean that it couldn't just fucking tear off. That's not what I'm saying. Do you want to put money on that? It's the lower probability. It's the less likely is what I'm trying to say. The less likely outcome is that we're going to retrace this entire impulse to the 25. Just less likely. So why? Wait. So all right. So let's say it rips. What are you missing? All right. So maybe it does something like that, and you're thinking, okay, well, fuck, I got that all wrong, and now there's the 5. Right. Same process. You're still doing the same thing. Let's say it goes up. We're going to go to 116. All right. So are you sad about missing that? Well, fuck yeah, sure. Yeah. Well, if you're already long, you're just fine. But if it's coming back down, so likely there'll be some retracement, right? It's not that it must happen. It's just that it's likely to happen. So now you're a buyer down here at this 50. So are you buying at 60 or 68? Right? It's kind of trader's choice. But so all I can give you is my input. So I would not be a buyer here on the anticipation that we're going up to new highs. Give me the 50%, put it on sale, and then I'm looking to add. So, all right, if you guys get a different I told you I had an alternate here that I was playing here. So how am I doing on time? Well, I'm kind of long here. So let me just rip you through this, because I don't think it matters. So if you look here and you go, oh, okay, so this 3-4, that was a perfect algo push. So maybe that's the one too. Well, again, if you care about the subdivision, you can't get the 3 up here, because you can't just ignore completed impulses along the, well, shit, I shouldn't say it that way. If you're going to use the Elliott Wave guidelines, rules, and principles here, you can't just go, oh, fuck, that's inconvenient to my account. I can't figure it out. Fuck it. I just want to make that the 3, because that's the highest. That's probably the highest with the oscillator. Yep, there it is. Okay, that's my 3. Well, right. I mean, I understand that. That's kind of the lazy man's approach to it, right? So most people that bitch about Elliott Wave is because they're too lazy to learn it. They go, fuck, that's a pain in the ass. The Elliott Wave is all subjective bullshit. I get those comments on YouTube all the time, right? I understand, right? But I also know that the reason most don't use it is because they're too lazy to learn it. And it's not easy to learn, right? There's a lot, and there is subjectivity to it. Often I'll tell you, there's multiple counts. So if your count is wrong, how is that different than you bought a fucking moving average crossover? It's not, right? You're going to be wrong more than you're right, period. It's just how you go about getting to creating the probability zones. Or, if you want to use whatever the fuck you're using, price action, Ikemichu, it doesn't matter. I guarantee you're going to be wrong more than you're right. I don't care who you are. So it's just, how do you organize the data here to create an entry? What are you looking for? What are the conditions? Structure? Oh shit, we got no shortage of structural traders in crypto. People that go, fuck that, Elliott Wave's kind of a pain in the ass. I don't want to have to worry about that. I just want to do shit like this. This is so much easier. Well, structure, prior resistance. Oh, maybe that'll be the support, right? So that people go, oh fuck, okay, that's easy enough, right? I don't have to memorize anything. I don't have to learn anything. I just want to make money. I don't want to have to work for it. No shortage of those guys, right? If you don't like the way I'm doing it, what the fuck are you watching my videos for? So, right, members, this is work through it, right? So you should stop the video right now, and because you're not going to remember everything, go through it. So what do you come up with, right? Challenge yourself a little bit. You think that's the 3? Show me the count that gets you there, right? How are you dealing with all this, right? Where if that's your 3, is this your 4? Show me how you're getting the 1, 2. I'll be curious to see how you do it. Right? It's tempting. You think, oh, there's the deepest retracement. There's a retracement, right? We're looking for depth of retracement, trying to organize the wave count. Can't do it. Shit, I've tried, right? I just went to an alternate saying, can I get this as the 3? For that very reason, because if this is the 2 and that's the 3, well, we're right in the hot spot. We're right where we're looking for the 4, but you can't just ignore this. Well, fuck. I mean, if you want to apply Elliott, right? You can't just ignore the fact that I've got impulses in here because it's inconvenient to what the way you want the count to be. It's my opinion, guys. All right, so there you go. I'm all over that, right? Give me 65 to 64. I am a buyer. All right, guys. Didn't mean to get on a rant there, but there you go. All right, I'll be back with one more.